Jan. Okay, we are live on YouTube. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here. Really appreciate your participation as always. I just wanted to kick off the meeting with a friendly reminder. I'm sharing an image of our website. This is our page on the town website. And this is how you find us. You go to committees and councils, and here we are under Comprehensive Plan Steering Committee. Reminder all the way at the bottom in the right here is Google Translate, and you can translate the page into many different languages. Nestled right here under draft documents and past public workshops. This is where the draft of the inventory and analysis report is posted. That's going to be part of the draft comprehensive plan. We've also got all of the community input, the raw input from round 1 and round 2, and also the final drafts of the vision statement, the goals and objectives. They're still drafts, but these are the final drafts that reflect community input from everybody who participated in round 1 and 2. Thank you so much. That's all here on our website. So just a friendly reminder, lots and lots of stuff here, including copies of our most recent presentation to the board, which we will be talking about tonight. But again, just wanted to thank everybody so much for being here and for participating in the process. And to our volunteers, our community outreach volunteers, thank you so much for all of your efforts. And we're going to be leaning on you more as we go into our final round. But we're 2/3 of the way there. We've been at this for more than 2 years, and the end is in sight. We'll talk about timeline tonight, but yeah, I just can't say thank you enough to everybody on this committee, all the chairs who are participating with us, our town board liaisons. It's just so much time and effort is going into making sure this process meets our mission, which is that everybody in town has a fair and equal opportunity to participate, and that we get inclusive and widespread participation. And I feel really good about what we've done so far and what we have left to do. So with that, I'm going to jump right into the agenda. So starting with committee business. So just wanted to give everybody an update first. When I presented to the town board on the 18th, and Valerie gave a presentation as well, I gave the town board an opportunity to give input on what timing and format they would like to see for the next public workshop. And their options were, should we try to squeeze it in before the end of 2023, or should we wait to 2024? And they opted, let's wait for 2024. That way, there'll be more time for the public to sit with the draft, which will be posted soon. More on that later. And also just more time to advertise. The end of the year is particularly busy time for everyone. So we're looking at the beginning of the year, and more details about the timeline to come later, but just in broad strokes right now. And then in terms of the format, NPV had reported to us that what we have budget for right now in the project budget is 1 hour and a half workshop with the public. And this is separate from the public hearings. There will be separate public hearings that the town board will run on their own. And so I talked to the town board about that and said, in terms of format, they opted for virtual workshop via Zoom, but to make it a hybrid workshop so that people can also attend in person, we can have a hosting of that at the townhouse. So it'll be happening via Zoom. It'll be live streamed via YouTube. People will be able to sign into the Zoom session and participate. But if you want to go in person, you can go to the townhouse and you'll be able to participate there with the hybrid setup that they use for the town board meetings. So nice win-win for everybody. There will be an online virtual option and an in-person option, and it can all be accomplished in budget. So the town board felt really good about that. they know it's an option if they wanted to release more funding or go over budget for the project to have additional workshops. But at this time, we didn't think they didn't think that was necessary. And I think we would agree that we can forge ahead with what we've got. So any questions about that, that specific timing and format? Okay. The other thing I wanted to report from the town board meeting is Valerie gave a presentation. It was quick. She had a subcontractor on with her from, let me just bring up the document here and I can share it with everybody, from Star White House, which is a landscape architect and planning firm. And just as a reminder, part of the project proposal from MPV and part of our project budget is to work in some design elements throughout the plan. And so Star White House presented 3 different options that that could be within the project budget for the town board to consider. And they opted to take some time and think about it. And the deadline for them getting back to NPV is October 10th. So what I'm going to do now is just share. We can just quickly go over them here as a group and answer any questions. Or Dan, I see that you're with us. So if you had any conversations or stuff has bubbled up since the discussion with the board, you can report. Just super quickly, all 3 of these options, as you can see here, would be incorporated into the plan as diagrams, cut sheets, reference standard, basically like in normal non-planner language. Like they would either be like call out boxes or included as appendices in the plan to give some visual interest and just to kind of give people reading the plan a sense of what bubbled up in the participation process and some guidelines for how to implement some of the goals. None of this is binding. None of it would be, this is what it says in the plan. This is how these things have to look. They're just meant to be inspiration, guidance, and precedent. So the first is recommendations for integrating pedestrian and bicycle access between trail systems and downtown hamlets. The second is providing Lewisboro with accessibility and inclusion guidelines for public spaces. And the third is high-level guidance on visual considerations for downtown areas. And this is only for there was a lot of discussion of this. Valerie kind of had to elaborate. Only for public-facing things. So this has to do with things that are considered in the public realm, and we can get into that in a little bit more in a second. The first 2 options are definitely within budget. The third option can be within budget, but depending on how much the scope of it gets stretched, the third one definitely could easily go over budget if the board wanted to see a little bit more or less. Okay, so Charlene, go ahead, ask your question. Oh, you're on mute. Unmute yourself.
The first thing about the trails and bikeways and stuff, how does that interrelate with what we have? I mean, basically, there is a statement that we are going to have a bond issue for certain conceptual plans. And so how does that, I don't know, I don't understand what they're going to do or if they're going to do anything different, because right now it's sort of, we're doing something that has been recommended. And I don't think that, I think it would be sort of duplicative.
Mm-hmm. Dan, do you want to piggyback on that before I kick it to Dan, or you have something else? Let's let Dan.
Yeah, I mean, I'm imagining this as just sort of a set of samples and archetypes, and like, if you have an intersection with such and such conditions, like here are ways that you can deal with that. and just kind of lay out those ideas. You know, if you got a rural road with this kind of a issue, you know, these are the kind of treatments you could do for traffic calming or whatever.
But Dan, is
And
that what they're going to do? I don't know if that's what they're going to
I
do.
mean, that's kind of the way I read it, but maybe I'm open to other interpretations. Because
So
I don't know that.
oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
My interpretation of that was a lot more of the kind of signage and directions for trails. And I think of the three, I think this is the least good, or least beneficial, that gives added value to the town, in that, you know, there are all sorts of public standards about how you mark trails and how you indicate there's a turn in the trail or a intersection. And there are all sorts of things that already exist about how you indicate that there's a bike lane on a road. And so there are things that exist, whereas, so I didn't feel that having, and the second thing is the audience, the people who end up working a lot on trails, I think, now this is not so much bikes, but thinking about trails, are an awful lot of Eagle Scouts and so forth that might not, you know, I really think that getting, using some of the items that are kind of keeping with other trail motifs, you know, I mean, the national parks have all sorts of signs that say, you know.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but the title on here was like complete streets though. So I think
It
you're
said
maybe,
trails.
there was another.
Maybe what we need is to get what they mean.
Well, we did have some back and forth discussion of this during the town board meeting, which is recorded and everybody can watch. But I think,
Yeah, it does have complete streets. I don't know. I was just going to say, if I had a chance, I would go with the third one. I think it is the area that we could have some real impact on the town. We don't have a town feel, except maybe some of the signage, that, you know, the loopy kind of signs with the curlicues on them that are some neighborhood signs. And I thought that, you know, that would probably make the most difference for the town overall. But that's just my initial view. Thanks.
Charlene and then Dan.
I watched it and I'm still not clear as to what it is.
Mhm.
And what I would request is that maybe these people come and talk to the steering committee, because I don't really understand, you know, how it integrates. And Dan has a different idea. I have a different idea. Jan has a different idea. Obviously, we're not quite all on the same page because we've interpreted it differently.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough, Charlene. In fact, I'm wondering maybe they can point us to other final products from other plans, other municipalities, and give us specific examples. But I'll just add that, and in the meeting, I committed to reach out to the Hamlet committees to ask them which, you know, of these three items, you know, as unclear as they are, perhaps, would be where they would incline towards. So that process is still a little bit in process. I'll say that the Vista people were right away on top of the first item, you know, that they felt that was where they could derive the most value from. The Golden Bridge people they like that item, but they're also not, you know, they like number 3 too. Just because they sort of have done more thinking about this kind of placemaking concept that's wrapped up in that. But on the other hand, like if I think about that one, and Janet, it's a wonderful ideal, but the idea of trying to get the town and 3 hamlets on like one aesthetic theme is to me a nightmare. I would, if that was what they chose, I'd like other people to work on that, because I'm sure it's going to be just a real difficult thing to, and maybe the hamlets, don't want to be entirely uniform, and then, sort of what do you do? So I don't know, but fair enough that we should probably try and clarify a little more.
Point of clarification, Dan, when you say the Hamlet committees, you mean the independent, like the Hamlet associations? Okay.
Correct. Yeah, I shouldn't have called them committees, the hamlet as, associations or whatever.
Okay, just making sure we were clear. Okay, so just I want to throw out there, last time we had a steering committee with Valerie, committee meeting with Valerie present, she kind of explained, we have this money in the budget for Star White House, and this is what they're proposed, they have to come up with some proposals of what to do. And we collectively said, that sounds like something the town board should decide on. They should pick, and then they came to the town board with these 3 distinct options. I think we should continue to discuss it, but does that still feel right to everybody in terms of the town board being the ones to guide which option we go with? John, go ahead. You're on mute.
Yeah, I'm curious how those 3 got picked. I mean, I think there should be some, I don't know if I want to call them guidelines or profile, but we got, I don't know, I forget how many goals we got. And how did those 3 get picked? Did they get picked by this committee? I think they need to get picked. I think we had some guidelines. One, are they affordable? We could go spend a lot of time on something we know is never going to get funded. What's the biggest impact? I mean, I would like to see how these got picked, or maybe we should be putting together some guidelines of how to pick them. And maybe that's the town board's job. But I think the job of this committee is to give recommendations to the town board. But we got a lot of goals and stuff to pick, and we should be coming up with some way to do it that has the most impact and can be done.
Mm-hmm. Charlene?
Is this going to be in the comprehensive plan itself?
So these 3 options that we're discussing are how to use the budgeted amount of time for Star White House as the landscape architects to have them create some visual pieces that will be inserted into the comprehensive plan, either as call out boxes or sort of like standalone sample pages, like tear out sheets, they call them, or an appendix at the end. And it's meant to just give some visual interest and sort of give people some visual stuff to kind of get their wheels rolling. And what Valerie mentioned in the presentation, and she had emailed to when she shared the options with me and the town board at the same time, she said how we came up with these was we looked at the goals and we thought about, they haven't made this public or shared this with us yet, but they're putting the goals into like an order of like time horizon and priority. Like what's the low hanging fruit that can be accomplished easily? What's the midterm stuff? What's the longer term stuff? So she and her team have that knowledge, and they took like what's easily accomplishable / what's a theme that kind of runs through the easily accomplishable goals, and then maybe also runs through some of the longer term goals too. And what can Star White House do to sort of bring that to life within the budget?
I understand. I think my point is, if it's going to be included in the comprehensive plan and we're the steering committee making recommendations, then in truth, maybe I was not sort of aware of that, or I mistook the conversation. But if it's going to be in the comprehensive plan, we're going to recommend the comprehensive plan, then we should be part and parcel before it gets to the town board. I'm not saying the town board has no input, And obviously you have liaisons, but it does become part of a document that we're signing off on.
Okay,
So,
thanks. Jan?
Yeah, my understanding was that these were going to be suggestions, and I guess to some extent, everything in the comprehensive plan is kind of a suggestion or a guideline rather than, so I thought it was more appendices of the comprehensive plan than built in, but I get it. My thought on this is talking now as planning board. If I'm on the planning board and I want to try to help use this to implement, I'm thinking that number 3 is the one that is most likely to come up. And when we deal with anyone, and they, so I'm even going to back up. I think there's a guideline for the town center, for the townhouse, library, and post office that they're all supposed to use a certain palette. And then they went and didn't use that same palette. So it's not, I don't think these are absolutes or anything that we can really opine on. But I know, when people show us the colors of anything from cell towers to what they think they're going to put colors somewhere, or, signs that they're going to put out and how big they're going to be. And I know ACOG has a lot to say on that too, but it would be kind of helpful if we could say, oh, and we have some things. Have you looked at those? Would they work for you? Not, you must do this. But so again, if I'm going to say one of the goals is to try to help us bring, a sense of place to areas of Lewisboro, that I think is one of the reasons I like that one. And I'm saying it because there is a rep of the town board here. And because, I'm not saying we have to make that choice. And it could be that they bring up designs that I hate. So then what am I going to do? But anyway, but I think that is the one, as now talking as planning board, that I think it would have the most meaning to us as we go through reviews of various things that come in from applicants.
Any other committee before I open it up more? Anybody who hasn't spoken yet that wants to throw some thoughts or questions out there?
Just an observation, kind of reacting to that third item again. I'm wondering, did we see a lot in the feedback from the information solicitation from the public that spoke to, we really need a common aesthetic theme, whatever throughout the town? That would really be a great thing, because I'm thinking, that could be one measure as well. And certainly on the complete street side, we did get lots of those comments.
Yeah, we can ask Valerie that. Anybody else? Larry, I saw you unmute. Did you want to say something?
I thought about saying something. So
no pressure. Just want to give space for everybody.
Just one of the, I kind of tend to have some feelings about signage, and I know I had communicated it with Katie outside of this meeting.
Yes, that is on the agenda for later too.
Yeah. So, but what Jan said about the signage, signage that does contribute a lot to a sense of place, and for signs in the public realm, whether it's those, those little town signs with the curly cues that Jan was referring to, I do think that there's some merit to really considering asking for something like that, or suggesting something like that as something to develop a little bit further with Star White House. That was my comment.
Anybody else?
I'm very interested in signage, and I think that's a great visual indicator of community and creating a cohesive, identifiable sense of place. So I'm very interested in that. We're all about graphics and visualization, and the signage changes from hamlet to hamlet. Somewhat, confusing. The Walkabuck burgundy poles are different than they are in Vista. In fact, as you come into Lewisboro from Connecticut on Route 123, the signs are fallen over, laying in the grass and the tall weeds, and haven't even been reinstalled for many months. So I think signage is like super important, and I think it should be a consideration. So I'm happy to participate with that initiative.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, so let me synthesize what I think I'm hearing, and then I need to see like thumbs up or thumbs down. I think I'm hearing that between last meeting, when we were like, yeah, I think that the town board needs to be the decider on that, and then the actual presentation to the town board, and tonight, that maybe our feelings have shifted a little bit. Like we kind of skipped over an intermediate step where NPV should have brought these to us first and gotten our input and direction, and then brought it to the town board after that. Is that what I'm hearing? Okay. So I think sort of like timeline crunch was probably the contributor to that. Because I know Valerie has mentioned that she, in preparing for this meeting, she updated the timeline, which is posted to our website, and as we're going to talk about tonight, she's sort of feeling the crunch and like getting the final draft of the plan itself to us by, let me look at my notes here, by the end of November. So was sort of hoping like we could get a decision on this really quickly, and then they could move along with finishing the plan. So I think that probably influenced sort of lack of foresight here in planning in terms of needing an intermediary step. To keep the current timeline going, she does need to have a decision by the 10th of October. But that does give us a little bit of time that, we can kind of ask her some questions, have some dialogue over email, loop in the town board, and we can all be chatting about it at the same time. That's the beauty of email. Everybody can be copied. Dan, do you have a sense from the town board? I don't know if you've had another meeting since there. Like, does that decision deadline of October 10th, has there been any more conversation there? Or does that seem like the town board has feelings that, they'll be ready to make a decision by then? Or any development?
We didn't talk about it in this last meeting.
Okay.
And as I said, we left it that we were going to solicit some input from the hamlets because, they probably have strong feelings about it. Mm-hmm. And that was pretty much where we left it.
Okay. So it sounds like we've had some votes. We've had a vote from Jan in favor of option 3, but then we've had sort of Larry and Mark have expressed maybe like shifting one of them a little bit more towards signage, like a option currently not listed option. Charlene, go ahead. You have some.
May I make a suggestion? Maybe what we should do is look at the options we have, and as a steering committee, sign in as to what we believe, by a certain date. If she needs it by October 10th, then we should do it as soon as possible, maybe by October 1st or October 3rd, and then send it to the board. And with all due respect, Dan, I think that would be actually easier for you guys because, soliciting their input by October 10th seems to be a bar that cannot be met. So my feeling is if we do it, it needs public hearing. So it's not like it's going to be, we're going to have another town thing. So it's not going to be like it's dead. It's, that's in stone. It's going to be something that can be discussed.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, I'll take direction from you, Dan, but I think that's the best.
Well, I just want to say, the final content won't be in stone or relative to more hearings and everything, but the selection of the
Yeah.
one of those three areas that will be locked in. I don't think we'll be in a
We can do priorities.
Hmm?
We can do priorities amongst the steering committee.
Oh,
We
yeah.
do priorities and say, these are our priorities.
okay.
Just take a
And-
vote on it, you know?
Mhm.
And then that's what comes to the,
And that's
Town
what's
board.
come to the board. It's not in stone. It's just priorities.
Jan?
You think this, trails are most important, blah, 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 and then stick one in that. That's what the steering committee doesn't mean that you have to accept it. You do what you want with it.
Mhm. Jan?
Yeah, so again, I'm thinking a little bit more about this, and that one of the things that we heard a lot about was people saying, oh, the first thing you see when you come into town is a cell tower. Oh, the first thing. So I think there is a sense of, that people have expressed this, even though they haven't used those terms.
I mean,
And
in terms of like signage.
yeah,
Mhm.
or something like that. I know that the building inspector, when he first got here, he said, take a look at the first thing you see on each town road when you come into the town. Is that what we want? So it was kind of an interesting eye opener to me. And I just, the other thing I wanted to say is I think that to the extent that there was a budget component, we said that definitely has to go to the town board. To the extent that we have a preference for things, I mean, I was sort of thinking even that by saying it here, Dan would hear it and would maybe take that to the board. So, so yeah, I agree. We need to get something, if we think we want to give a more, a prioritization of this, we probably need to get it to Dan or to the town board sooner rather than later.
I think we could do it in an email.
Yeah.
Just round robin it.
Yeah, I think that's very easily accomplishable. So why don't I take that and send an email around in the next 24 hours to this group, which is the steering committee plus the chairs of ACARC, ZBA, and planning board, and copy our town board liaisons, and we can just take a vote and have a little dialogue about what we think. And throwing in, I also have to ask Valerie where signage plays into it, and if signage could be folded into one of these existing options. Yeah, and then we can let the town board know, like, we've discussed it and this is what we think.
But
And I
it'll
think
be on the
that's-
record. I mean, I think that's the most important. Dan, I'm not trying to, usurp anything that you're doing, but since we are responsible for something, then we should be responsible for this too, if it's going to be in the comprehensive plan, at least as to our thoughts.
John, go ahead, and then Dan.
Yeah, I think this is actually a good one because it's something we can accomplish. Now, it might mean getting a designer to design a new town street sign. But that would be kind of interesting to get one that's kind of unique and different. But it's something that's kind of under the control of the town board. And it's something that can be done over time that will have an impact. And it's not too complicated, so people can understand it. And the point of the building inspector, I think, hit it right on the head. It has an impact. It defines the town a little bit. So I think this is actually a good one to proceed with.
Okay, so you're throwing your vote behind this signage. Okay,
Yeah.
let me ask Valerie. I'm sure we can figure out where that fits in and if there needs to be an option number 4 added. But yeah, all accomplishable, and I don't think it changes the deadline necessarily, as long as everybody can commit. What's today, Thursday? Can commit to looking at their emails and getting back to me by the end of the weekend.
Absolutely.
Okay, awesome. Dan?
yeah, I was just gonna say, there seems to be overwhelmingly in favor of signs, but I'll just make a couple more comments. One is that my gut feel is that the signs theme could be something, totally independent of the plan that we just do as a one-off. And to me, it doesn't feel as much like a fundamental, like this is a plan guideline, which is going to be used over and over, as opposed to, say, even let's forget about complete streets, it's accessibility. Okay, these are the different ways that we will go out and address accessibility. So every time you have a new project or something going on, you have a set of guidelines. You could say the same thing about signs, but I mean, we're going to have, a finite number of hamlet signs, and then you're kind of done. So to me, that's kind of like a one-off, and it doesn't really, ride through, year after year as something that, hey, here's your plan. Let's go map this new activity against the plan, And then again, once again, I would just say, like, it'd be worthwhile to take a look at what the, the highest priorities were and in the stuff that came in from the residents.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those are great points. I'll make sure that Valerie, I'm going to have Valerie watch this recording from when we discussed this from the beginning till now. Now is 8:04. Okay, so she'll be able to put something together. Since everybody else did it, for the record, as the last committee member who hasn't said anything, my personal vote is for approach number 2, the access and inclusion guidelines for public spaces. But that's for the record, but it doesn't mean anything because we always work together as a team, as a committee. Okay, any other final comments on that? Okay, watch your emails deadline by the end of the weekend. All right, let's move to the next item. I'm going to share my screen. So this is just very quick. Wanted to just alert everybody. Another thing that came up during the town board meeting was very helpful. We got a question from one of the board members about how the town lawyers and planners would be involved. And we got official authorization from the board that when the zoning subcommittee reviews the red line drafts of the zoning code, we were already going to be sharing that with the town board so that they would have a chance to see all the proposed red line changes from NPV and provide their feedback and their input ahead of the zoning committee meeting and discussing, which means the town board's fully involved. There will be absolutely no surprises here when it lands on their desk eventually for approval. We're also going to include the town council, planning board council, and town planner. All 3 of them are going to be looped in with all of the drafts, and they've been invited to the zoning subcommittee meetings as well. So they will be fully in the loop with everything, all 3 of them. And this is just really good news that the town board is said, yes, go ahead, do that, because that means it's just even more seamless and efficient process here, less back and forth overall. So that's good news. Okay, project timeline. So in terms of committee meetings, in October, on the 16th, that's going to be the next zoning subcommittee meeting. And then in November, we're going to have another committee meeting, steering committee meeting like this, where NPV will not be present. And then in December, we're going to have a meeting like this, steering committee with NPV present. And then another meeting in December that will be the zoning committee, the zoning subcommittee. And here are the goals. So Valerie and her team, assuming they can get a decision on the design elements by October 10th, their goal is to get the steering committee and the expanded steering committee, all the other chairs and the town board liaisons, etc., us all a draft comprehensive plan and draft zoning updates by the end of November. Also, then they're hoping that we can discuss it during our December steering committee meeting and in leading up to that, and we can pass final drafts to the town board for them to review in December. And then we will have the public workshops to discuss those drafts in January. And NPV will also attend a town board meeting in January to discuss with the town board. And then after that workshop, NPV and the steering committee will be able to go back and look at the drafts and make sure any final feedback from the board and the public are integrated, have a public hearing with those changes acknowledged and integrated in February, and then potentially have an adoption vote in March. So that's what she's come up, her and her team have come up with. It probably is, it'll happen quickly and is tight, but I think it all hinges on then getting us the draft by the end of November. They're going to be getting us some, the zoning committee, they'll be getting some red line changes on definitions and sort of baseline stuff in the next week or so. And then they're going to be getting the first round of zoning code red lines to the zoning subcommittee and the town board and the lawyers and everybody by the end of October. So drafts are just going to start rolling. But what it means, like from top line, like the public will be able to start seeing final drafts in November and have a workshop. I'm sorry, not November, in December, and then have a workshop to provide their input and feedback in January. So questions or thoughts on that timeline? And obviously timeline's always subject to change. Stuff will have to shift if we're, lots of moving parts here. So we've never had like a very hard deadline where this has to be done by a certain day, but we certainly would like it to keep moving along and be done in an efficient manner. Jan?
Yeah, so I don't know if it's obsolete, but I have the zoning goals document that said that a lot of important stuff I thought was supposed to be done by the end of September. And
They're just running behind on that.
okay, so this is going to get, I just would like, because it's definitions, it's wetlands, it's trees, it's a lot of important things that were sort of for September.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I'd like a little more clarity on what happens. So they will get it to us. Are we going to try to then, it looks like the next zoning committee meeting won't be until November. So how are we going to
October 16th is the next zoning subcommittee meeting.
Okay. All right. Then that's good. Then, because
Yeah.
I guess I thought I heard you say November, and I got worried that we would have this stuff and no way to really deal with it. Okay. So if it comes soon and we get to talk in a couple of weeks, that will be good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll have to keep an eye on the timeline. I mean, Valerie's definitely pushing for an aggressive timeline, and if they're not able to meet it, then we just have to be flexible and sort of shift things a little bit. So
Yeah, I just know that, we've, in some of the zoning discussions, we spend a lot of time on, two phrases. And so there's, and that's the zoning code is pretty big. So I would rather have it sooner than later. I know that the plan and the text of the plan is really important, and that gives it gives some of the meaning behind the zoning, but the zoning, as we know, writing it, you kind of have to look at it a couple of times and make sure that you're saying in the code what you really intended to say and not leaving things out. So I don't want to, I'm really heartened to hear that you said that we should get something within a week or two within a week, I guess, from her. Thank you.
Yeah. And she is definitely walking a fine she and her team are definitely walking a fine tightrope. That they, when they created the project timeline and the budget, they've said over and over, like, our town and our board and our steering committee were way more involved and detail oriented than the typical group that you're used to working with. So, which kudos to us. Like, yes,
That's all you. That's you.
Well,
all
I
you need.
can't take the credit. It's a team effort, but good for us, as we should be. But they did not see us coming, and they're not used to having to make like more than 1 or 2 revisions to things. So, and we're also very particular about them not going over budget and are breathing down their neck very aggressively on that front. So they just need to make sure that more revisions don't result in more money and going over budget. But I think we're doing a good job of managing that.
This is all good.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's all good and we can definitely do it. But just if she were here, I know she would want to defend herself that she can't go back and forth a million times. So we'll just manage that the way we have the whole time. If there's intermediate steps where we collect feedback and synthesize it and then get it to her all at once, we can do all of that stuff. Any questions about the timeline or sort of the different deliverables in there? Okay. That's everything under regular business for the agenda. We can move through the rest pretty quickly. We went over time on that, but I think we're good. So next topic, very quickly, fall public outreach. So just to kind of keep the momentum going and to remind people like, hey, this process is still going on, and alert them that the next public workshops will be in January. We're gonna do a October. I just wanted to, I think that makes sense to everybody. We got October campaign before maybe spilling a little into early November, but we'll have a new flyer that has the QR code that just says like, did you know we're updating the comprehensive plan and here's how you stay involved, and the next meetings will be in January 2024, and just something that can kind of go up electronically and get spread around social media. And I will ask the outreach teams if they can do another round of posting paper flyers. So just wanted to make sure that made sense to everybody, see if anybody wants to get involved in that, help update the flyer, if anybody's good with Canva or, anything like that. Okay, no problem. We will forge ahead. Town events. So there's some, there's like the new neighbor social. There's going to be trunk or treat. The Oktoberfest, like there's a bunch of fun community things coming up. So if anybody is going to be going anyway or wants to volunteer, we can get you a little pile of flyers to hand out. Oh, and by the way, I wanted to thank John on that topic. Thank you, John, for organizing the library fair and for venturing out into the crowd beyond the table and making sure that everybody got flyers. I think that's just really good visibility for the project. So thank you so much.
I've done the neighborhood thing, so I'll do the next one. When is that?
I have to look it up.
Yeah.
I think it's coming up pretty soon. Okay, so Charlene will continue doing the new neighbor thing. Thank you so much. Anybody else want to volunteer for something? Send me an email. Let me know if you change your mind. Okay, but we'll just.
I was going to say that next time at the library fair, we should have some candy to give out, but we won't be doing this by the next library.
No.
fair.
No,
I
this
hope.
was our third library fair, right? We had this was our
Yeah,
third.
second. I think our second.
Only the second?
Yeah, I don't know if they had
I
one.
was at the first and I got sick at the second.
Okay, so we had two. We had 2 library fairs. I mean, that's
Yeah.
pretty good. No, 3. Kirsten says 3. It was 3, right?
3?
Yes. I'm like, I have to be. Yes, there were 3. There were 3. Guys, it'll be 3 years in March that we've been at this.
Yeah,
I
I'm
know.
just wondering- Well, I'm
Better
just
believe
wondering-
it.
We didn't have a table at the first one, I don't think, because I did 2 of them. I didn't do 3.
Maybe we didn't have a tape. No, Larry had made.
Barry
no,
did that. Yep. That
Larry
was
did
it
it.
with
Oh,
Larry.
Larry, you did that? Yeah, because I don't remember it.
No, I don't need
That
that.
was when the first survey was going on and we had a big,
Ah,
mm-hmm.
All right.
See, time is all warped here. We've
Good
been
one.
at this for too long.
And Kirsten and her husband were a huge help holding down the fort while we pushed we pushed John out to the crowd to run around with the flyers.
Thank you. See,
But
team
thank you,
effort,
Kirsten.
everybody.
Thank you, Kirsten.
And there's still residents who don't know about the process. So we I don't know, talked to 30 plus people. So a few more know now.
That's great.
All good.
That's awesome.
There's very good visibility, actually, and then Senator Peter Harcum came over, and we had a chance to acknowledge the fact that he wrote the supporting letter for the $20,000 grant. So it was very good. It was very good connectivity.
Mhm.
Not at the table, though. You had to go out and find them because.
Right. Well, that's all really
Darlene,
good.
I think the new neighbor event is October 1st.
oh, wow.
It's this
It's
Sunday
Saturday.
afternoon or Saturday. It's this weekend.
2
This
to
weekend.
4 at Fox Valley.
2 to 4. But okay, I'll look it up, but great. Okay, done.
Yeah. Okay, so next, or any questions or thoughts about public outreach before we move on? Okay, additional considerations during the final project phase. Okay, so this topic, Larry alluded to it earlier. So just want to make sure that we talk about it amongst ourselves and are thoughtful about, I guess I can sum it up as this question. While we're all here gathered together and we have the chairs of planning and zoning and ACARC and we have town board liaisons, while we have these ongoing discussions happening anyway, is there stuff that is not going to be touched by the planning code update or the comprehensive plan that also bears discussion or a look, or leveraging the public outreach we have, leveraging the consulting resources we have? Larry brought this up in relation to the ACARC guidelines. They have their own set of items. I don't know what it's called exactly, but they have a whole separate set of things that aren't necessarily in the town code document. Are there other things like that too? And should we be revisiting, not we specifically, the steering committee, but should this broader group and the team building we have here, should we all be thinking about this now? Charlene?
I know this was sort of said, maybe we should do it later, but it seems like it was an issue and it's going to become a bigger issue. And that's the Airbnb stuff, because it's becoming an issue in a lot of places. And whether you can do it, excuse me, my cat is having an issue. It's becoming all over. Do you have the owners stay there? I mean, New York City is now looking at it. I think our reasons would be different. We have the lake communities, and I do not live on a lake, so I don't have a dog in the race or a cat. But the fact of the matter is, it has been very disturbing. And I could understand that, because if it's not your house and you're just doing it for a weekend, and you're
Okay.
on a lake, and I know I wouldn't care much either.
Okay. Jan, you have something to add?
Yeah, the other thing I would, so even the ACARC guidelines are in the town code. They just
they
might
are.
not be they might not be in zoning. And another area that some of them are in zoning and some of them aren't, are the whole concept of special permits. So you can get a special permit to, I don't know, keep construction equipment, or to, we have them for the winery has a special permit. We have, and I think maybe one of the things that we should look at is, are there some things that we're asking for special permits for that now are sort of a matter of course, and we shouldn't really bother anymore? And are there other things that maybe we should have someone take a look at, and if somebody wants to do something? And I haven't really thought this out, but that would be one area that if you said, hey, let's put this brain trust and apply it to something, that might be a place where it makes sense to look at.
That's really interesting that you said. So make sure I'm just going to write this down correctly. So with regards to special permits and with the ACARC guidelines, sometimes it falls under zoning code, but sometimes it doesn't. So it will get looked at as part of the zoning code update process, but only partially. Is that correct?
So the zoning, it depends upon, so our code, we tend to call it the town code, but sometimes we also call it the zoning code. But the zoning chapter is one chapter of this big set of town codes. And in some cases, like I noticed that that Valerie said they were going to look at things like trees and steep slopes and so forth, which are not in the zoning chapter. But I don't know if she's going to look at the whole shebang. And to the extent that there are things that are not included in 220, which is our zoning, special permits might be one of the areas that we would say, let's see if that makes sense as a entity. I mean, because what we've done over time is added one special permit. Some of them are very, very old, some of them are relatively new. And I don't know if as an entity, if you took them all together, and said, okay, we have whatever we have, 40 of them, maybe we can really categorize them as 20, or maybe we don't need some. I don't know, but that's why I bring it up.
Interesting. So as I'm listening, I'm looking at the list of the proposed sections and chapters. I see a lot of 220, but I also see 7.3, 126.4, and 183, 1 through 3, and 195. Oh, and 203.
Yeah, I mean, there's
So
things
yeah,
that
I think
sort
it
of-
is all a little bit of everything. So
Yeah.
that's good news, and that it's not limited just to 220. We can definitely make sure that it's possible that ACARC and special permits will be covered as part of it. John?
I'm curious what she's going to do with trees, given that we have a tree ordinance and we're updating a tree ordinance. It's really not part of zoning. It's its own separate.
It's 203 tree preservation.
Yeah, it's an ordinance.
Yeah.
And
She does have that on the list, but if you recall, so in the homework folder on Google Drive, there's this document, zoning and goals. So she has listed the zoning. Sorry, she has listed the plan objective. Like I'm looking at the tree one, for example. Here, I'll share my screen. I'm looking at the document, and you can see which part of the code.
Yeah,
Which part of the code here, but then like which objective it relates to. And this one here is objective 7.8, which is promote native and pollinator friendly landscape, and then which part of the zoning it relates to. So it doesn't mean that she's gonna like change it completely or recommend deleting it or overhaul it, but her and her team are gonna look at it and make sure it aligns with the recommended objective. So
yeah, I don't have an issue with that one. So
that's
Yeah, I
just
think trees is on page 4 of that, but I think it anyway, that
it seems like it'll be more broad than just 220. So that's the good news. I'm curious from the chair of the zoning board of appeals, is there anything So Jan mentioned special permits, Charlene mentioned short-term rentals. Is there anything that doesn't seem like it's going to fall under NPV's review that you want to throw out there as also needing to be looked at side by side? Or are we good? We're covered.
Can you hear me?
Mhm.
Yeah, well, some of the zoning, most of the zoning codes work pretty well. A lot of them are predicated by the state.
Mhm.
So, but times do change, and we have, companies, we have businesses in town that need to operate out of their houses. And sometimes this is not a big problem, so other times it's not so easy. But we have a society now that or the way people are is they don't they need more labor services to maintain their properties and their houses and everything. So you need more of the working class people that do that type of work to do that, and they need places to work out of, basically. So I think we should try to make the zoning codes a little easier for these people to be here, because I think a lot of these people, we want these kind of people around to begin with, because a lot of them then we would hope that would volunteer to help us with fire departments, ambulance corps, and things like that. But aside from that, it's just you have to try to work to get everybody to work together a little bit so it works for the taxpayers. And that's about it. I mean, there's just some businesses definitely wouldn't work, and other ones would be fine and really not noticed. So it's a matter of just working with a lot of different people and trying to figure out which is going to work for everybody in the town.
Okay. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Okay, so any other things? I'll just make sure to pass this list on to Valerie to see if these things are going to be looked at. Okay. Any other sort of, since we have a few minutes and we're nearing the end of, phase 3, final phase of the project, any just general comments or questions or concerns before we sort of forge ahead with, the drafts and the public hearings? Things are going to snowball really quickly. Is there anything on anyone's mind that they just want to throw out there now before the timeline really starts to pick up speed?
Yeah, I would agree with Duff that, the working from home, I don't know that we really restrict it a lot, but there's probably going to be some conflict. So, I think it would be interesting just to see if they have some, okay, this is a successful way that, people can do it up until they get, 6 cars, or up until as long as you screen things, you're okay. I don't know if I don't know, but I think working from home and the sort of working with all that entails is something that is apt to happen more. It could be that everybody goes back. I know people are trying to get people to go back to offices, but I don't think a lot of people have small buildings anymore that, to rent an office just to run a little shop. I don't think people like to spend that money anymore. So they're going to have an office in their house. So I thought that's a good point. I'm just echoing Duff with a lot more words than he used. Sorry.
No problem. That's great. Dan?
Yeah, and just an observation that what you're talking about sort of maps a little bit to the sort of form-based zoning code concepts that are, applied in some of these exercises, where we're basically saying we don't want to care what you do at your place. We care about just the overall quality of life, as long as we meet the criteria, whether it be noise, maybe we have some visual standards and things like that, all those quality of life things, and we're not degrading the quality of life. We don't care if you're working at home or what you're doing at home. That would be a sort of an approach to it that's simplified, but
Anybody else? Okay. Let me look at where we are on the agenda. Okay. We need to approve the minutes from our last meeting. Remind me what the date is on those, Kirsten?
August 21st.
Okay. From our August 21st meeting, I motion to approve the minutes that were circulated to the group prior to this meeting. Charlene is seconding. Committee members in favor? Aye. Everybody? Aye. Okay, yeah, everybody. Okay, so
Thank you.
that's good. Open action items. I think that we have covered everything, including the upcoming town events where we're going to have flyers being distributed. Okay, and I'm just looking at the agenda. I think we covered everything. Okay, we're good and we're early. I'll just pause in case anybody had anything that they didn't get a chance to say. We don't usually have nice space at the end, so.
A question about the second December meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a date in mind?
No.
Okay.
We should ask Valerie about that first, and then she just said they would want to have a second meeting in December.
Okay.
So
There's
we
time.
need to, yeah, but we should get that on the calendar as soon as possible so we can ask her what works for her team.
Great.
And doesn't, overlap with any of the other meetings. It's a little tricky.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much, everybody. We will have a lot of homework coming up, a lot of reading and, thinking to do once the edits come in for everything. And the draft of the comprehensive plan actually hits our inbox, which will be a very exciting day. In the meantime, again, keep your eye on your emails. We will talk about the design subcontractor options and have a decision from this group by the end of the weekend that we can pass along to the town board that'll help them make their decision. Okay, great. Thank you so much. A motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Good night.
Great. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you. If you're still listening on YouTube, appreciate you so much. Thank you for being here. Take care, everybody. Happy fall.
Good job.
Thank you. Are we still live? Looks like we're still live.